In the next few minutes, we'll reveal the 13 most influential companies of the Roaring Twenties and show you how they faced their biggest challenge yet, the devastating crash of 1929. Number 1. Coca-Cola. Back in the late 1800s, Coca-Cola started as a simple medicinal tonic. But who could have guessed this fizzy concoction would become the drink of a nation? It all changed when a Georgia pharmacist mixed it with carbonated water, creating a refreshing beverage that folks couldn't get enough of. Coca-Cola's rise to fame in the 1920s wasn't just luck. They became marketing wizards, coming up with catchy slogans and eye-catching ads that got everyone talking. The iconic Coca-Cola bottle, designed in 1915, became so famous you could recognize it by touch alone in the dark. Coca-Cola didn't just sell a drink, they sold a lifestyle. They sponsored big events and used popular culture icons in their ads, making Coke as American as apple pie. By the end of the Roaring Twenties, Coca-Cola was serving up a mind-boggling 1.5 billion drinks every year. Talk about a marketing home run. Number 2. Ford Motor Company. As Coca-Cola fizzed its way into American hearts, another visionary was about to revolutionize how we moved. Back in 1914, owning a car was a luxury few could afford. Most folks relied on horses or crowded streetcars to get around. Enter Henry Ford with a wild idea. What if everyone could own a car? Ford's secret weapon? The assembly line. Instead of one person building a whole car, each worker focused on a single task. This method was so efficient, it slashed the time to build a Model T from 12 hours to just 90 minutes. But Ford didn't stop there. In 1914, he introduced the $5 workday, doubling many workers' wages. This move attracted a stable workforce and set a new standard for labor practices. Number 3. General Electric, GE. While Ford was revolutionizing transportation, another titan of industry was about to usher in an even more dramatic transformation. Picture this. It's 1920, and only 1 in 4 homes has a refrigerator. Fast forward just 10 years, and kitchens across the nation look completely different. What sparked this rapid change, and how did it set the stage for the modern American lifestyle we know today? Enter General Electric, the company that would quite literally light up America. Back in 1900, a mere 10% of homes had electricity. Can you imagine living without light at the flick of a switch? GE saw an opportunity and ran with it, launching ambitious plans to bring power to every corner of the country. But GE didn't stop at keeping the lights on. They filled homes with appliances that made life easier and more enjoyable. Refrigerators, washing machines, and vacuum cleaners became must-haves for the modern household. By the end of the 1920s, a quarter of American families owned a fridge, a huge jump from just a few years earlier. Number 4. Pepsi-Cola. From a small-town pharmacy to a national sensation, Pepsi-Cola's story is one of true American grit. Back in 1893, pharmacist Caleb Bradham whipped up a refreshing drink he called Brad's Drink. Little did he know, this concoction would soon give Coca-Cola a run for its money. But how do you take on a giant like Coca-Cola? Pepsi had a plan. In the late 1920s, they shook things up with a bold move: bigger bottles for less money. It was a gamble that paid off big time, especially when the Great Depression hit. Suddenly, Pepsi's "twice as much for a nickel" slogan wasn't just catchy, it was a lifeline for cash-strapped Americans. Pepsi didn't stop there. They went after the young crowd with snazzy ads on radio and in magazines. It was all about being fresh, fun, and different from old-school Coca-Cola. And you know what? It worked. By the early 1930s, Pepsi had snagged a whopping 20% of the soft drink market. Not bad for the new kid on the block. Number 5, Chrysler Corporation. In 1925, the auto industry was a battleground dominated by giants like Ford and General Motors. But Walter Chrysler had a different idea. He wanted to create cars that weren't just affordable, but also packed with quality and innovation. It was a bold move that would shake up the entire industry. Chrysler's vision came to life with the Chrysler 6. This wasn't your average automobile. It boasted a powerful engine and sleek design that turned heads on every street corner. But Chrysler didn't stop there. He revolutionized how cars were built, introducing interchangeable parts and streamlined assembly lines that made production faster and more efficient. The results were staggering. By the end of the 1920s, Chrysler had zoomed past the competition to become America's third-largest automaker. Can you believe they captured a whopping 20% of the market in just a few short years? It's like they went from 0 to 60 in record time. Number 6. Walt Disney Studios. Imagine a world where cartoons were silent, characters were flat, and animation was just a novelty. Now, picture a visionary who saw beyond the black and white, literally. How did one man's imagination color the future of entertainment and create a cultural phenomenon that's still captivating audiences a century later? In the early 1920s, animation was primarily a silent affair. Characters lacked personality, and stories were simple. But Walt Disney had a different vision. He wanted to breathe life into his drawings, to make them dance and sing. In 1928, Disney introduced Mickey Mouse in Steamboat Willie, one of the first cartoons with synchronized sound. Suddenly, animation wasn't just moving pictures, it was a full sensory experience. Disney didn't stop there. He pushed the boundaries of animation technology, introducing the multiplane camera for greater depth and realism. By 1937, Disney had produced Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, setting a new standard for animated films. Number 7. The National Broadcasting Company, NBC. From 60,000 to 5 million in just 9 years. That's how quickly radio receivers spread across America in the 1920s. But what sparked this explosion of radio fever? Enter NBC, a company with an audacious plan to create the first national network. How did this broadcasting pioneer transform not just entertainment, but the very fabric of American society? Before NBC came along, getting news and entertainment was a pretty local affair. You'd read the town paper, catch a show at the local theater, or gather around the piano for some tunes. But NBC had a vision to connect the entire country through the airwaves. In 1926, they launched the first national radio network, bringing the same programs to listeners from coast to coast. NBC didn't just broadcast, they revolutionized what we listened to. They mixed up their programming with a bit of everything: music, comedy shows, educational content, and breaking news. Suddenly, families across America were tuning in to the same shows, laughing at the same jokes, and getting their news from the same source. It was like the whole country was one big living room. Number 8. Radio Corporation of America, RCA. While families huddled around their radios, a silent revolution was underway. In just a few short years, the number of radio stations exploded from 30 to over 600. But who was pulling the strings behind this explosive growth? Enter RCA, the wizards behind the curtain of America's radio boom. They weren't content with just connecting cities. They wanted to shrink the world. Back then, sending a message across the ocean was a slow, tedious process. RCA dreamed of instant global communication, and they had the know-how to make it happen. RCA's engineers were like mad scientists, cooking up wild new technologies in their labs. They created the Super Heterodyne Receiver, a fancy name for a device that made radios sound crisp and clear. This wasn't just a minor upgrade. It completely changed how we listen to radio. But RCA didn't stop at making radios sound better. They revolutionized how radios were made, too. By standardizing radio technology, they made it possible for radios to become a common household item. Suddenly, families across America could tune in to the same shows, creating a shared national experience. Number 9. Hershey. Imagine a world where chocolate was as rare as caviar. That was the reality for most Americans at the turn of the 20th century. But one man had a revolutionary idea. What if chocolate could be for everyone? Milton Hershey's sweet dream was about to change American palates forever, and the numbers behind this transformation are truly mind-boggling. Back in the early 1900s, chocolate was a luxury few could afford. Milton Hershey saw an opportunity to bring this delicious treat to the masses. He set up the Hershey Chocolate Company in 1903 with a bold vision: to make chocolate affordable for everyone. How did he do it? By revolutionizing the manufacturing process. Hershey's factories were a marvel of efficiency. They could churn out chocolate bars in record time, dramatically lowering costs. In 1900, Hershey introduced his famous milk chocolate bar, and 5 years later, he launched the Hershey's Kiss. These became instant hits, flying off shelves across America. But Hershey didn't stop at making chocolate, he changed how we thought about it. Thanks to his innovations, chocolate went from being a rare indulgence to an everyday treat. By the 1920s, Americans were gobbling up Hershey's chocolates like never before. Sales skyrocketed to $60 million by 1926. That's over $900 million in today's money. Here's a sweet surprise. By the end of the 1920s, Hershey controlled a whopping 40% of the chocolate market. Talk about a sugar rush! Number 10. Lux Soap. Picture this. It's the early 1900s and soap is just soap. Fast forward a few years and suddenly, washing your hands is an act of elegance worthy of Hollywood starlets. What caused this sudsy revolution? The answer lies in Lux Soap's groundbreaking approach that turned cleanliness into a coveted luxury. In the early 20th century, soap was seen as a basic necessity, not a glamorous item. But Lux had other ideas. They decided to market their soap as more than just a cleaning product. It was a ticket to sophistication and beauty. How did they pull it off? By bringing in the big guns, movie stars. Lux's ads featured popular actresses of the time, suggesting that using their soap was the secret to achieving that coveted Hollywood glow. It wasn't just about getting clean anymore. It was about feeling like a star in your own bathroom. This clever strategy didn't just sell soap, it changed how people thought about personal care. Number 11. Colgate-Palmolive. Picture this. It's 1920, and your breath could knock out a horse. But hey, that was normal back then. So how did we go from stinky mouths to pearly whites in just a decade? The answer lies in a revolutionary tube that would forever change our morning routines. Back in the early 1900s, most folks didn't give much thought to their teeth. Homemade pastes or powders were the norm, and regular brushing? Not so much. Enter Colgate with a mission to revolutionize dental care. Their secret weapon? The collapsible tube of toothpaste, introduced in 1896. This nifty invention made it easier for people to use and store toothpaste, setting a new standard in the industry. But Colgate didn't stop there. They launched a series of marketing campaigns in the 1920s that hammered home the importance of dental hygiene. They taught people about the benefits of regular brushing and even showed them how to do it properly. It was like a nationwide dental education program. Colgate's innovative packaging and branding strategies also played a big role. They used bright colors and eye-catching designs to make their products stand out on store shelves. Before long, Colgate became a household name, with its toothpaste capturing a huge chunk of the market. Number 12. Kellogg's. From polishing teeth to revolutionizing breakfast, the 1920s were all about transforming daily routines. But would you believe that a simple flake of corn could spark a dietary revolution? Kellogg's didn't just change what Americans ate. They reshaped the entire concept of breakfast. How did two brothers with unconventional ideas about nutrition manage to alter the eating habits of an entire nation? Back in the early 1900s, breakfast was a heavy affair. Most folks started their day with hearty, time-consuming meals that left them feeling sluggish. Enter the Kellogg brothers with their radical ideas about health and digestion. They believed in the power of simple, plant-based foods to promote well-being. Their cornflakes weren't just a new product, they were a whole new way of thinking about the first meal of the day. Kellogg's didn't stop at inventing a new food. They became masters of marketing, using eye-catching packaging and clever ads to convince Americans that a bowl of cereal was the key to a healthy start. And boy, did it work. By 1929, Americans were eating over 12 pounds of cereal per person each year, up from less than 2 pounds at the turn of the century. Number 13. American Tobacco Company. While Kellogg's was busy revolutionizing our mornings, another company was about to spark a different kind of habit. Get ready to explore the controversial rise of American tobacco. In the early 1920s, smoking was still a niche habit. But American Tobacco Company was about to change that in a big way. They didn't just sell cigarettes, they sold an image. Their ads were everywhere, featuring movie stars and even doctors recommending their brands. It was a marketing blitz like nothing America had seen before. American Tobacco's Lucky Strike became a household name thanks to clever slogans like, "It's toasted." This wasn't just about taste. It was about making smoking seem sophisticated and modern. And it worked. By 1929, Americans were puffing through a staggering 100 billion cigarettes a year, more than triple the amount from just 2 decades earlier.